So delighted to be joined by my next guest, which is James Mappin from Wednesday Till I Die.
Ollie, do you know what? I'm delighted to see you, mate, because I was getting worried that the internet wasn't working in S2. So I'm glad that I've seen you, mate.
I'm just going to take a break, Gab. We'll be back later. You guys cover this bit.
Lovely to see you, James. A sort of a welcome boost for Sheffield Wednesday from a footballing side, a 2-0 victory at Portsmouth. Are fans sort of able to enjoy the odd sort of high point this season, even when, given the financial and existential crisis that the club's kind of going through?
Yeah, we have to, because those wins aren't going to be. There's not going to be many this season. So yeah, when they do come, we have to enjoy them as best we can. To be fair, and I'm sure we did that. Look, nobody expected a win down at Portsmouth at all. I mean, it is quite a good, happy hunting ground for us in recent years. I think we're unbeaten in 5 down there. But I thought, and I think many other people thought, that run were going to come to an end. To be fair, it is. We started off the season okay, against Leicester, and we had to come back against Wrexham, but then the performances kind of fell off a cliff somewhat. The expectations aren't very high at all, but the performance against Bristol City wasn't great either. 3-0 defeat there. So yeah, I don't think anyone predicted a win at all, not even a draw. I think we'd have been happy with a shot on target, to be honest. So to come away with a 2-0 win, yeah, absolutely delighted.
One thing, I suppose one ray of light to come out of all this, James, is the emergence of some of the youngsters that would be, loaned out to the National League North, I imagine, in different circumstances. You've got Ernie Weaver, who's playing centre half, and George Brown, who's playing up top. So some nice moments for those lads.
Yeah, I mean, look, they sound like they'd be playing in the 1930s or something like that with names like that. Ernie Weaver, what a great player he is. You're right. In this kind of, in the adversity that we're in, we are having to look to the youth setup. I mean, historically, Sheffield Wednesday do not develop youth players at all. I'd be struggling to name one of them that's really done anything. I know we've got Liam Palmer that's still with us, but
Bailey Kadamatri maybe being the one that's come through.
Yeah, but he's not done anything yet. Hopefully in 3 or 4 years' time. But kind of in the history, I'm sure Ollie could reel off a number of players that have kind of played in the Premier League. I don't think we've had any that have come through the youth system to then play in the Premier League, certainly since we've come out of it. So obviously now we've kind of been forced into doing that because we just haven't got any other players. So there was a kind of, there was a worry that they might not be good enough, and then it could be a real risk. I think having the 3 games in the Cup has massively helped us, because that's been an opportunity for him to get minutes that they wouldn't have normally got, and a chance for Henrik to kind of see where they're at. All right, against some Bolton, Leeds, and Grimsby, different opposition in terms of like strengths and stuff, but he's still been able to see what they can do. And Ernie Weaver, when he's been put in there, he's looked fantastic. He came off the bench for about 5 or 10 minutes against Bristol City, and instantly he looked much better than Gabe Otubeyo, who he replaced. And I think I was kind of calling for changes for this weekend, but hand on heart, I didn't think they would probably happen, given that we'd just played the youngsters had played on Tuesday. I thought they would probably see them maybe this weekend coming up against QPR. But you know what? Fair play to Henrik. He's thrown them in there. George Brown as well. We struggle with goals, and for him to get a goal on his debut, he'll do him the world of good. We'll not have that debate of whether he should have kicked the ball out or not, because he absolutely shouldn't have. It was, I think I've heard the argument. I've seen it where, if he was through on goal and he pulled his hamstring, they wouldn't have kicked ball in net for us, would they? So that's, that's kind of puts that one to bed, to be fair. But no, those youngsters are looking great. Look, I'm not getting too carried away with myself. It is only one game. However, that's all we can go off at the moment. So, long may that continue. It just makes the squad bigger. We're going to struggle this season in terms of rotation. We haven't had Saturday, Tuesday at all yet. That's coming up this next weekend. We've got QPR, then we have to travel to Birmingham. I forget what the game is after that, but there's 3 games in 7 days there where we're going to need these other players to kind of step in. Actually, it's the senior players that need to step up. Your likes of Ike Ugbo, Jamal Lowe, they're the ones that need to pull the socks up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, do you know what? That's the one thing this season, as you said, they're taking it one game at a time, but that's where the joy is in this season. It's finding those moments. It's recognizing how incredible it is that this team's competing, winning games, giving everything they've got to be in the championship and to fight through so much adversity. I think, obviously, the one thing I think we probably all need to just think about for a moment is that sort of Henrik Pedersen's role and what he's done coming in. You know, the amount of upheaval there was over the summer. You know, we're talking about a manager who had galvanized the club over the last 18 months, the lack of payment to so many players, staff, everybody else, for him to have not just committed his future before anybody else, before he knew what was going on, even as assistant manager, he was willing to take this forward. And he's obviously doing a fantastic job in terms of working wonders with some of these young players, getting you performing. And I know as much as anybody that it doesn't matter how good your squad is, your manager can make a big difference. And he's working wonders, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, look, he's Mr. Positive, and I think that's all you can be, really. You know, some people say, "Oh, why is he saying this, that, and the other in his press conferences?" Like, literally, what else is he going to say? You know, he's not going to come out there and chuck his players under the bus, is he? And he's not really going to chuck the chairman under the bus. Although, you know, I think everyone else is doing that for him. To be honest, he's going to be like that. I mean, there is a concern that, you know, he's kind of in the mould of Danny Reel to a certain extent, and he likes to tinker things, and he perhaps might overcomplicate, you know, the game of football when it's not really needed. Certainly in our need. I think that happened last week against Bristol City. He did tinker with it this time. He put Jan Valery in that holding midfield role and kind of swapped him with Liam Palmer. Liam Palmer then went out at right back. Valery isn't a holding midfielder. Well, we didn't think he was, but he had a fantastic performance. And so I suppose from his point of view, from Pedersen's point of view, he's made a few changes and tinkered with it, and then we get a 2-0 win against Portsmouth, so he'll be thinking that's more than justified. But I think one thing that we did see, which is definitely something that Pedersen's instilled, is that heart and desire. And like you said, Ollie, that's what's going to get us anywhere near survival. Hand on heart, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think we're going to fall away massively in, you know, the latter half of the season. Certainly when other clubs are signing players in January and we're just left with what we've got. Yeah. So I think that's where the problems are going to come. But you're going to need that battling performance. I think it was something like 26 clearances from the two centre backs. I think there was about 8 or 9 block shots, which we don't see anything like that in any Sheffield Wednesday performances. But they were throwing themselves at everything. The other problem is we can't do that for all of the games this season. They're simply going to burn out. We just haven't got the squad, which is why I'm kind of worrying for later on down the line. But, you know, let's just enjoy it whilst it lasts until Saturday.
Yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah, I think I agree. I think you've got to give Henrik Pedersen a lot of credit, but maybe for that win, but also maybe the experienced lads, Barry Bannon with that lovely free kick, Liam Palmer as well. I saw one moment, I think it was the Portsmouth game, James, where Liam Palmer made this one lung-busting run down the right-hand side and managed to get a cross in or something like that, but he couldn't get back because he was literally out of breath. But it literally shows that these lads, you know, the older lads, they'll put their bodies on the line and they'll really stretch themselves to try and make something happen for Sheffield Wednesday this season in terms of survival. So they're giving absolutely everything.
Yeah, and they're the ones that need to stand up to be counted, really, when you look at it. Look, like I said, the expectation this season isn't very high at all. You know, we can all as fans say that we're going to back the team 110%, and it's easy to do that at the start of the season. It's just whether that's going to be there later on down the line, because we are going to get some hammer-ins. I'm sure they're going to be coming at some point. But yeah, I think when you have got that mixture of youth and experience, you know, you mentioned Palmer there, Barry Bannon again, 35 years old, been around the block for a long, long time, seen it all happen. You know, even other people, I've mentioned Jamal Lowe already. He's in his 30s. Dominic Iorfa, another one who's been at the club for quite a long time as well. Them players need to, you know, they need to stand up to be counted as well. I think one thing that has been good, though, certainly from the performance at the weekend, certain players that got dropped, they're that now. I think, I'm not saying this is true or not, but maybe a bit of complacency may have been setting in because we haven't got many players to replace them. They're just going to think, well, I'm going to play every single week. No, you know, I ain't got anyone else to come in and challenge for my spot. Whereas now, these youngsters have stepped up and they'll be giving absolutely everything. You know, for Ernie Weaver, I mean, George Brown, he'll think, you know, Christmases have come at once when one, getting presented with that chance, and two, to kind of stick it away. He's now a championship goal scorer and nobody can take that away from him. So now there's going to be a bit of competition for places. I did not think I was going to be saying that on any sort of podcast at all this season, because I thought we'd be struggling to field a starting 11, let alone a squad. But again, I keep going back to expectations. The bar is set so low this season. All we want is just a performance. I think even if we get narrowly beat in certain games, as long as we just avoid a hammering, it's almost like a success for us. And whilst ever you boys can be below us, I mean, which we're going to choose this game, and that will still be the case no matter what happens. Then we'll milk it for all it's worth.
I think it'll be a fair bit longer than Tuesday, to be honest, looking at how we're playing at the minute. So we'll be the gift that keeps on giving for you, James. Don't worry about it. You're welcome.
Yeah, look, I had us down as being bottom, absolutely plumb last. If you said, if you'd have said to me we'd be 23rd and Sheffield United would be below us, I would have just laughed at you, to be fair. But look, stranger things have happened, and that's where we're at the moment.
In terms of, is there a feeling, James, that from what you've seen of Henrik Pedersen, you spoke there about partly the spirit that he's galvanised in this group, and maybe if we're really picking holes, possibly overcomplicating some things certain times, but it's always difficult with this personnel, isn't it? But have you seen enough to suggest that if there was to be some kind of takeover, and I've got no indication that that's likely to be anytime soon, that maybe he could be one to sort of take the club forward?
$1 million question there, Gab. I think he hasn't been there long. I mean, I know he's been there previously, obviously under Danny Real, but I think it's different when you're kind of calling the shots as opposed to just helping someone out. By all accounts, Windass said in a podcast after when he was still there, actually, that Henrik did quite a lot of the attacking tactics wise. I mean, at the moment he hasn't got much of a backroom staff at all, really. So he's kind of doing everything. He's spreading himself quite thinly across the ground. But the early signs are good, and I think if there was to be a takeover in the next couple of months or so, I think it would be stupid to kind of get rid of the manager. Things aren't going to change overnight. All right, if things change at the end of the season, so be it, and they bring in it's a fresh start. You can have new beginnings and all that. But whilst the season's underway, I think really you've got to give him a chance. And I suppose one benefit is that the fact that we haven't brought any players in. They're all his players, so to speak, in terms of they were all there last season when Danny Real was manager, albeit he was just the assistant. So he knows them all. Same with the youth lads as well. And I think because we haven't got any backroom staff either, so the likes of Giles Coke and Andy Holdsworth, who were the under-21s coaches, they've had to step up. And I think that's helped because we've had to integrate all the youngsters as well. Again, they'll know them like they've been spending a lot of time with them over the past couple of years. They'll know the strengths, weaknesses, what they can do, and also that kind of familiar face for these lads who are only 18, 19, 20 years old, making their first starts in professional football. I think that's massively helped in a weird way. I don't want to give any praise to the man at the top at all, but in a weird way, like it's kind of, we've seen things that perhaps we wouldn't normally see under normal circumstances. But I wish it wasn't like that at all. I wish we had decent players that we'd sign and actually celebrating more than just one solitary win against Portsmouth.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that's what I did want to ask you about, James. When I've spoken to other Wednesday acts, they've said they've got absolutely no idea whether there's going to be a takeover, but the indication, all the noises I can get suggest Chantier is still somehow managing to set the price for the club far too high for somebody. I don't even know how that's allowed if you're not paying the wages in full on time, but it does feel like that's a long way off.
Yeah, I think at the moment, I mean, the fact that we've let, I think, 13, 14 players go, including the loan players as well, and only brought in 2, one of which is just a charity donation from Manchester United. We literally pay nothing towards Harry and Mass whatsoever. You look at the wage bill, and that wage bill has been slashed massively. You know, apparently Barry Badden's taken quite a considerable wage cut to stay at Sheffield Wednesday as well. So he's clearly just getting the club down to a level that he feels he can manage. Now, we all know he hasn't got any money. That's quite evident. You know, the last month's wages were paid by the solidarity payment that you get from the Premier League that's handed down by the EFL. The EFL actually held some money back to pay some clubs that we were owed money to for transfer fees and stuff like that. So the EFL knew that they had that money. I mean, now we're under another transfer embargo. I know it doesn't really matter because the transfer window isn't open, but we're under, you know, it's just, I think we've been on that website this year more than we haven't, to be fair. Now we're under two more, one for the future finances and the other one for for profit and sustainability as well. Both under kind of the remit of we haven't given any proof of funds to the EFL. I say we, it's just one man. We know it is. It's Dejphon Chansiri, but he's not provided any proof at all. He had to provide 12 months of wages that he had that in a bank account in order for us to actually sign any players, even loan players as well. And he couldn't even do that. So that's obviously a huge concern. It's both a concern on one side, but also it's quite positive on the other that he actually hasn't got any money and he isn't going to struggle on the end of this month. So in a week's time, there's going to be a debt on. He took a loan out against the stadium. He sold the stadium to himself, and then he took a loan out as well for about £5-6 million. Every year since 2020, he's just rolled the interest over, so he's not paid a penny back for this loan. He's been allowed to do that. They refinance it on just a bigger interest rate. And now the rumour is that they're going to ask for that money back, or certainly a large portion of that money. They've been happy to roll it over, but they're not going to do that this time. So he's going to be wanting in the region of £4-5 million in about a week's time. So there's been reports that he's trying to sell some unrefined African gold. It's absolutely mental, Gab. Like, honestly, if someone told you this, like me telling you now, you're just laughing, and that is the reaction I think everyone will give. You wouldn't think that this is a football club in the second tier of English football. I
wish I could solve my financial problems by selling some unrefined African gold. I don't know where it is.
I have no idea where it's got it. I mean, by all accounts as well, it is in a treasure chest as well. I'm not joking at that as well. That is actually someone's seen correspondences from Dejphon Chansiri, and it is in a treasure chest like you would see in Pirates of the Caribbean or something like that. So I really don't know what land he's living in, but I can see why obviously the EFL are concerned. Is it a little bit too late? Probably, but you can't really go back and fix any of that now. So hopefully they've got a stranglehold on him. I don't think he's going to get past the end of this month. If he does, it's an absolute miracle. I don't know where he's going to get the money from in order to do that, unless he's done some borrowing from elsewhere.
Well, if we see a photo of Dejphon Chansiri wearing an eye patch going onto a pirate ship, we'll know what it is.
Well, if you see him at all, because he has gone into hiding, to be fair, nobody's heard from him, which is ironic, actually, because I know, Gab, you've had me on talking about all of his kind of press conferences and press statements and all that sort of stuff. And at the time, we were telling him to stop talking. We don't want to hear from you. And it is ironic now how we're actually saying, can we please hear from you, because you haven't said anything for quite some time. So.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to be laughing about it, because I do think it's a serious situation, and it's horrible what fans are going through. It's one of those things, I think anyway, that you almost have to laugh about it because it's just so farcical. But listen, I hope that comes to a head and that he does get forced to sell, because the club needs saving, really.
Yeah, the independent regulator can't come soon enough, to be fair. And I'm if they don't look at us, then I think there's something seriously wrong, because we are now, Morecambe seem to, they've been sorted as well. Reading at the time, they've seemed to got on the straight and narrow now. And it's us. We are the test case. So we are waving our flags or scarves, black and gold scarves, and trying to just generate as much attention as we possibly can. And I just want to say as well, a big shout out to the Sheffield Wednesday Supporters Trust, because the work that they've been doing, I think people forget as well, this is just voluntary. And when the trust was set up, I suppose they never thought that they'd be needed to try and oust the chairman from the football club that they love. Same with the other supporters groups as well. This is not kind of on their, this wasn't their remit when they first started the supporters groups.
Can I just ask on that, James? Has the membership of the trust shot up in this period?
Yes. Yeah,
because I would imagine, because a lot of the time, in order for a trust to actually, I don't want to. I think do well is the wrong word for it, but sort of gain momentum. Often it's because of problems at a club, and sometimes that can actually, in that, that can be a what's the word for a sort of cloud of like a silver lining, because it does mean that the trust can gain more influence, and if it's got more members, then it's easier for the trust to maybe with future owners increase that dialogue. So
yeah, definitely. That is one kind of positive that's come out of this, is that the relationship between fans, I think on the whole, we've all come together. I know there's like pockets of disagreements here, there and everywhere, but not everyone's going to kind of come together and agree on absolutely everything. But also as well, I think that relationship between the players and the fans has strengthened. You saw that final whistle on Saturday against Portsmouth when, you haven't seen, Matt, who I do the podcast with, he was down there and he said he hasn't seen kind of emotion like that since the win against Blackburn away a couple of seasons ago. The way that the fans were, you could just kind of sense that emotion. Barry Bannon coming over and the fist bumps to the crowd and stuff. It was great to see, and like I said, that relationship has grown strong, in which it perhaps wasn't too strong previously, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, James, it's been great to have you on the podcast, and hopefully I look forward to having you back on the podcast when the off-field situation, fingers crossed, looks a little bit brighter.
No problem, Thanks for having me on, pal.